All right, and the fun continues at AWE. Up next, we have Nicole Lazaro, who's going to be talking about usability in Wonderland, advanced UX standards for spatial computing and virtual worlds. Let me tell you a little bit about Nicole briefly. She's a leading authority on emotion and player experience and designed the first iPhone game. The first iPhone game?
The first game is playable on the iPhone, yes.
Wow, that's impressive. Okay. My first iPhone game was Doodle Jump. Remember that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
That came like way after mine.
Wow, first game. That's amazing.
2007, iPhone Dev Camp, Joe Hewitt.
With a Stanford degree in psychology, Nicole is the first person to use facial expressions to measure player reactions. She puts her expertise to work designing award-winning XR interfaces for enterprise as well as games at her company Zeo Design. And here's Nicole.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Let me just take a moment here to see if I can slide my laptop up there, and hopefully that should be good. So yeah, welcome. And so it's great to see everybody today, and this is like, we're live. It's kind of hard to believe it, and I feel like, oh wow, I'm not wearing a mask. Yeah, thank you very much for coming today. We're going to have an awesome time and a real quick romp and stomp through the metaverse and look at some UX standards. So thank you all for coming. So we've got, I want to welcome you to the metaverse and how to tame its UX. As was said, I have a leading expert on emotion in games. I have a cog-sci degree from Stanford, and the 4 Keys to Fun is used by millions of leading developers around the world. So it's adopted by some of my clients. I've run Zeo Design for about 29 years now, can believe it or not. We've also worked in the XR space, of course. And so now let's jump into usability in Wonderland. I thought I'd start with a definition of like where, just sort of level set. There's all of these technologies going, and with when I work on UX, I want to skate to where the puck is going to be. So this is how I see the internet progression over the past, umpteen years. Where Web 1.0, that's information access. With Web 2, we got interactive, we got social media, we got software as a service. Web 3 is my definition here. Feel free we can talk about it in the halls if you want. But it's immersive on one hand, and it's interoperable on the other. And that, I think, is very important for UX design. So what is the metaverse? A friend of mine asked, what is the shortest definition of the metaverse? So this is my take. The metaverse merges the physical on one hand and the digital on the other. It's merging the physical and digital worlds. If you understand that and have that as your ground lay as a UX designer in the metaverse, you're going to be, you're on really good, solid footing. Any technology can come and go, but that's really what's changing here, and that's where the innovation is. Metaverse UXs, they tend to go digital. They're live, they're 3D, they're interactive, user-created, persistent, sensory, streaming, and social. And in fact, the metaverse is really, it's spatial media. We heard about social media from a couple years ago. Well, now the metaverse is really all about integrating the digital representation of what it integrates that with what it actually describes. So we have this clicker in the physical world and the concept of clicker, and now in the metaverse, they're combined. Merging content and controls is something we're going to talk about with metaverse design. UX is different than UI. Quick primer. If you design a UI without UX, it's kind of like designing tactics without strategy for the gamers in the audience. And what we want to do is we want to focus strategically, what is it that we are trying to accomplish? Because you can Band-Aid over, an infinite number of UIs, over something and not actually deliver value. So UX is really focused on the value of the experience of use, the experience it creates. So the player system in last generation interfaces, it's fairly narrow. We tried to make it as rich as possible. With Metaverse Now UX, it's got to overlap there's the opportunity to overlap really deeply. And so the UXs that we're going to be using again and again, the Metaverse concepts and platforms that'll succeed will deliver this really rich merging of the person on one hand and the experience on the other. To do this, we have to give a fond farewell, a Viking funeral, to one of the one of the longest concepts in UI. How many people know what a WIMP is? Okay, most of us call it GUI right now, but it's essentially Windows, icon, mouse, and pointers, and solo. All right, I added the S for solo. And that was invented in 1973 at Xerox PARC with the Alto Star. And it's been a glorious ride of 48 years. And it's time to put WIMPs to rest. So what would we replace it with, might you ask? Well, we're going to go from WIMPs to WOA. Okay, I'd like you to think about, instead of WIMPs, I'd like you to think about WOA. And what is a WOA? Well, it's worlds, hands, objects, avatars, and social. Very important. These are the new paradigms. These are the things that are really going to change the metaverse. This is really going to change computing. So if you design for these, you keep them in mind with your team, you're going to be light years ahead, and you can escape the constraints of the WIMP. So instead of windows, think of worlds. Instead of icons and buttons, clicking those, consider objects. Instead of mice or a mouse or a controller, game controller or otherwise, consider hands. Instead of a pointer, look at avatars. And instead of solo, of course, all your friends, and let's make it social. Because there's no room for WIMPs in the metaverse. Design involves in stages. And so we go from and all design does this. So we have the horse and buggy phase at one point. We get the modern automobile at the other. And in between, there's this awkward teenage phase we call like a horseless carriage. It's neither a carriage, it's neither, it's neither an auto or a buggy. What is it? Well, we're kind of in that stage now with what our metaverse is. Some aspects, like the wheel, are going to go all the way through. And then some, like the horse, are going to get left by the roadside. And so as we look, I'd like you to find the WIMP. You can play a game. You can play a game back at your studio if you want. Where are the WIMPs, and where are they working, and where should they be replaced with something better? Lenovo made a great announcement a couple months ago now, I think. And what changes about UX once smart glasses are as common as laptops? Very interesting thing to think about. And then when I look at an image like this, it's not their only marketing image. Do I see any WIMPs? How about this? Is this the metaverse? It's 3D. He's using his hands. It looks like he's got a HoloLens on, something like that. Well, a better example I love is my friend Shelley Peterson from Lockheed Martin. She's designing and building the Orion spacecraft there with her team and using the HoloLens 2 to assemble it. And she's getting a 90% improvement with AR. It's kind of a chair assembly, faster and better than IKEA. I'm kind of making up the better than IKEA part. But this is what it looks like. So you have these augmented thing, what it looks like, the augmentation is sitting and mapped one-to-one, a digital twin or digital part to what you're supposed to do. And then there's a window that comes up with your instructions. And then most importantly, that last screen, which is your completion criteria, and you have to sign off, which is really helping with that 90% improvement on reducing error rates, for example. So let's go in. So World UX, the first W in WO is world. There are no WIMPs, as I mentioned, in the metaverse. And we're going from the last generation of flat screen, Windows, to floating screens, like we saw in the Nova thing, to now the metaverse. It's really want to be in-world, no container. We have the ability now to detect surfaces, walls, segmentation analysis, and so we can actually respond quite a bit more with our content to the actual world that the person is in. We'll be talking about AR and VR examples. And when we're doing this, when we're out in the real world, for example, this is a lens I made for the Snap Spectacles, the next-gen ones. You want to look at what are some unique real-world interactions that add value. And what are some new ideas? Because there are whole new use cases that go when you can take your smartphone with you or your smart glasses with you. This we did over the weekend. This is the Paper Doll Opera at the Opera Hackathon, and it's a Snap lens. And here you can see I just tap my computer keyboard here, and then I have a virtual stage. And now I can mix and match. It's done for increasing opera in youth and stuff like that. And I think it even sings, maybe. Nah, they didn't sing. All right, next time. So 3D video, this is another thing I did for the CCA campus. There's a 3D video in the middle of what the path used to look like before they cut down all the trees. So it allows you to do some very unique use cases because you're out in the real world. I pulled this one out of the archive because Niantic had some amazing announcements yesterday. This is a geolocated game I created for Tilt World where you're planting points on a Google map. And this was like back in 2009. And so it's that, but what you want to do is you want to be sure that you're adding value. With your adding world, you have the opportunity to do portals, and you want to be sure that they respond to player action. So it's not just a window that you're walking through to a new place. You want to, like this game Portal here, that there's some strategy and some gameplay that's resulting from you moving from place to place to place, from world to world to world. Portal is an amazing game. How many people have played that? Yeah? Okay, great. That's what you want to think about with portals. Puzzling Place is another VR game that's come out. You imagine building a world around you, in VR or in AR with some of these pieces. It's a great idea. I can't wait to get my Tilt 5. They're on the floor. I think we can all play. But here the world is they're transforming the world of the coffee table. So now there's depth or there's height, and then you can see other people's faces. So it's social. Very important characteristics for UXs in the metaverse. And this is this is Flow Immersive. They're laying out the COVID death totals as a dynamic thing, and something changes when you can actually walk through the data and work with the team. Niantic announced yesterday ground, sky, water, buildings. I love this idea of artificial ground as a segmentation, and what could be unique gameplay. And what we don't want to do is we don't want to just port the games that we played on our PCs into the real world. We want to think and rethink about new paradigms and new ways of doing things. And importantly also is to fill the world with live people interacting and storytelling. This is Finding Pandora X from Double I Studios, and Kira Benzing is the CEO there. And projection mapping. And these are all other opportunities for exploration and puzzles. So this is Meow Wolf and Unreal Garden, virtual. You want to punch hole in reality, like what they expect, in order to create these new experiences. So it's that balancing of, well, this is what I expect this thing to do, and now I can, the refrigerator is actually a portal to another world. This is another example of from the Snap Spectacles, Michael French. You actually move towards and away from the puzzle, and it rotates to actually solve all the interactions. So that moving in real space your body is moving in real space is another amazing thing. And then finally, for audio, to put you in the world, you really have to have spatial audio. And to get spatial audio, I had to coin a term called OXL. And the L got cut off because we're running on not my Mac. But anyway, it's OXL, Audio Pixel. And it's an audio source with positional information. I've got some models and other talks. This is a very simple model for cleaning up your spatialization if you're running in a real-time engine. And we can go into that if there are questions afterwards, but I want to keep moving. So the second thing is hands UX. And we can do a lot of great tracking, with our hands, going from drag and drop to pinch and drag, right, in the real world using our hands. And there are lovely things, but we want to have this balance between, hands are great for big gestures and performative, like if I'm performing something, I need that fluid motion. But then if I need to, if I'm working in tilt brush and I need to, put some little dots, polka dots on things, I'm going to need to have a controller. I'm going to need to have precision. So there's going to be those considerations to make. I think everybody in the room would love to have hand interaction to feel like this, yeah? Anybody like that? It'd be awesome, right? I really want that. But it is challenging right now with it is really challenging with the UX or the technology that we have. And one thing to think about is haptics is really on the PS5 with the DualSense controller is quite a bit above what it was in the Rumble. And if you want to think of a really great example is to compare the haptics on a PS4 version of Last of Us 2 to the PS5. You can feel a very, very different experience between those two. It's a great way to learn about that. Most importantly, though, is we want direct hand interaction. It needs to feel good. It needs to feel good for the player or for the user. And it just feels, even without haptics, you can kind of feel like what this should feel like just visually. Your vision is telling you how it should feel. I've seen a lot of great examples of using hands as controls and user interfaces and game state. So we have Half-Life Alyx, where you've got a lot of your game state on your hands. Lone Echo, you've got some stuff that's floating on your hands. And then the Climb, it's really like all about your hands. That's the main core loop of the game. This was the first example that I saw of having a mapped UI mapped to your hand. You have to, of course, be careful with disabilities because not everybody has one hand or two hands. But it does feel really good to make use of. You want the controls in the world, and it's really good to have it be on something that they can manipulate. These are just some more great examples of what's coming. And then combining hand and gaze interaction is really good as well. I did some work with fingerspells. Some of you people may have played this Magic Leap demo that I made. And this is, I'm actually spelling out, I'm doing a love spell. So I'm casting an L, an O, a V, and an E with my hands to unlock things. And the challenge there is you have to, instead of saying a word, you're actually spelling it out like with semaphore. And the occlusion, you've got finger occlusion, hands occlusions, and then most importantly, that wait time makes gestures really hard. Explicit gestures like ASL, very, very challenging to do right now with current machine learning. Of course, there's probably something running in the lab that'll prove me wrong, but right now it's pretty challenging. I'm going to move fast through a couple of these examples. This is the idea with a holographic display, like a display surface. I'm not sure if looking glass is here on the floor, but you can see an occlusion of that blue cube. There's actually 5 different possible ways to interpret that occlusion. There's a deep monitor, a deep glass monitor. So where that cube is going to change. So you're going to need to have a little bit more tech to get the occlusions all right, especially if it's flowing in front of the thing. All right, so here we've got some interesting things with hands. And then we've got so here you can see that you actually have the cursor's actually inside the light field display. And it's being occluded on the right-hand side by the object. So we have that balance act. And there's even a shadow for the icon or shadow for the hand. In this example, I'm actually using the spectacles and operating my hands, in real time in front of my face. And there is the other problem with hands is that when you have head-worn stuff, it's only the overlap of the 2 eyes that you actually get any depth information at all. And at 1 meter or however long your arm is, that can be really challenging because if you're over here, it's just in mono. You're not really seeing a stereo effect. When you understand your arm, but that can really distract you. So these are some of the evolving hand gestures. And then I want to go through the next couple really quick. So with objects, it's important to have an object as devices. Instead of a button, which is an abstraction, we want to directly manipulate a device. So this is a photogrammetry scan, not the actual real one. And you want to be able to use that instead of pushing a button. And these volumetric selections are great, but we want to be sure that we're really using our hands to work as a system. So with fish tank selection and pinch and drag can be powerful, but I really think that that's an intermediary step, and I think we're going to come up with something much better because it just looks like a box selection, and then we just made it 3D. I think we're going to be going much further. And I'm going to move forward a little bit. There's the spatialization, the feedback that you get from buttons really has to come in world. So for example, if you're in alt space and you hit an emoji, you have to actually look up to see the emoji that you're hitting, right? And it doesn't actually flow in front of your face, and that's half the fun of making an emoji is like to see it in front of the space in real world. It's like, yeah, that's what I really want to do. And then we're going to have, as these, so the real one is on the left, the scan one's on the right. I just haven't lit it, the right one very well. But they're so good now that we aren't going to know the difference visually between like this physical lectern and then the virtual lectern. So what kind of user language or interface language are we going to get so that the person can stay safe and know that that's actually not a real chair and sit in it by accident? So with avatars, what's really fun is that if you think about it, what is an avatar? It's actually the 3D person. It's actually a 3D cursor in the world. Okay, so it is actually the selection device. My favorite example of what you do with an avatar, comes from Phantom Covert Ops on Oculus, and it's actually his body is the UI. So instead of on the screen, all of his pockets and the little display panel in front, inside this kayak, he does this, he's like kayaking into this secret base. It's all chock full of all this stuff, and there's no UI flat on the screen at all. I highly recommend checking it out. There's really, really good smarts, like the hands in Alex Half-Life. But feet and arms as controls, don't forget that. So this is Feet Saber, and this is Dance Helper by Kate Harris. Those are really fun. And then the other thing you can do with bodies, this is in the Snap and Spark AR, is you can change your appearance. So these are some lenses that I was having fun with. And you want to be sure that the options are wide enough for individual expression. This is true if you're modifying the personal appearance of someone, and also if they're just selecting an avatar. So a lot of the avatar systems that are very constrained with the choices, they look cartoony or there's just not enough range and everybody kind of looks the same, that's not going to be as successful as something like Roblox, which has got like an infinite number. If you want to create identity, though, you want to also look at being able to take that identity across different genres, across different worlds. And we've got these great avatar UXs coming for live performances. So this is Vodcasto and Code Miko and Xanadu, and Don Allen has this great lens, which is a virtual costume that you can wear in video. So I'm going to skip forward through these last ones, and I'm going to go straight to the last one, since social is an important one, and then as we run out of our time together. But with Roblox, what happens is it's all about creating stuff with your friends. So it's social, but it's not just us talking to each other, and I think that's the big key. So it's not just us typing to each other or posting posts or submitting photos of stuff we already did. It's like us, you and I, in this virtual space doing cool stuff together. And then I would create a tool for then you to design your own escape room, right? I could set up an escape room for my friends, but I can also design an escape room tool for them to do. So there's these layers of the creative economy that are happening around social that are really important. And of course, social interaction is the juice that's really driving the craze of NFTs. So I would love you to think beyond WIMPs. If we have some time for questions, I'm happy to do it here or out in the hall. And this is the takeaway. So we want to think about worlds in the metaverse. So we want to integrate content into our worlds instead of windows and screens. We want to directly manipulate objects using controllers for precision. The objects we want to build, sculpt, and interact instead of pressing our buttons. And the avatars map features and feedback to the avatars or to their own body, in the real world. We got this whole range between VR and AR, right? And then lastly, we want to offer participatory, collaborative, synchronous, and multimodal interaction between people, not just speech. We think of the social media because of the frames of the popular social media things, right? But I was in computers before there was, and many of you were in the audience as well. And it didn't have to actually just go that way. So by challenging the idea of WIMPs, by challenging the idea of social media, we can come up with a lot of amazing new ways to interact, and I hope that we do. So thank you very much. If you want to drop off a business card, if you want a copy of the slides, I know we rushed through, and we've got a Metaverse white paper. So.
We do have time for a couple questions. We did run a little late, but we're starting a break right now, so let's take advantage of that, and if there are a couple questions that people have, go for it. There's a microphone right there. So who's up first?
Thank you all for coming. This has been great.
Thank you.
Thank you for educating us. This is the first session I've been where I learned something. Thank you. This is awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. That's
help me understand why audio is not part of your model.
As a separate component. I ran out of letters. And Avatar A was taken. No, it's a very good, audio, there's actually, I talked a little bit about spatial audio, but there is so many more I could give. I actually gave a talk on this at GDC on spatial audio for a game we did, Unscramble the Oracle, which is a choose your own adventure you play walking around the block. So we made 2 miles of content, and I created the illusion of like 6-DoF audio. So you walk. I put your chicken fairy godmother here because everyone has one, and then I can fix her in space. And so as you move through the Bose AR, she would actually just stay there, and so you could walk past her, or she could come along for the ride. The biggest thing with audio that I did not cover, it would be the relationship of audio to haptics and audio to feeling things. And so the whole purpose of music is to move you emotionally. At least that's what I learned from the Opera Hackathon this weekend. And what it can also do is it also can be a surrogate for things that you feel, physically, tactilely, and it can also create different body states, like let you feel rewarded, or get you curious about what's down that door. There's a great masterclass if you subscribe by Hans Zimmer, and he talked about, he's the famous, scores many, many, many amazing movies. And he actually goes through down in his process, and I highly recommend that. Because he puts something on the keyboard, he says, now that's an unanswered question, and this is the answer. And it blew my mind on how powerful audio is.
You blew my mind. For real, you're wildly creative. The first iPhone app and you made apps for the Bose AR audio glasses.
Yeah, I also designed the 4 Keys to Fun, I was the first person to measure microexpressions on people's faces while they played. And I put that was about 2 years of research, and I put that into 2,000 observations, and I had to build special walls in my studio in order to organize them. And it was all about how to create engagement moving forward. And I think what I do now is it's so important to, again, trying to think beyond our assumptions, and that's why I said think beyond the WIMP, because we don't want to bring all the extra unnecessary extraneous stuff, concepts and ideas with us into the metaverse. So yeah, so if any other questions, otherwise, if you would like, we can wrap, and I'll be available in the hall if anyone wants to chat. And if you want a copy of these slides, feel free to give me your business card. So thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and if you want, follow the White Rabbit, playwhiterabbit.com will be. You can sign up for our newsletter there, and we'll be doing some cool stuff with that soon.